Pope Shenouda III was the 117th Pope of Alexandria and Patriarch of the See of St.Mark. His episcopate lasted 40 years, 4 months, and 4 days from the 14th of November 1971 until his death on the 17th of March 2012. His official title was Pope of Alexandria and the Patriarch of All Africa on the Holy Apostolic See of St. Mark the Evangelist of the Coptic Orthodox Church of Alexandria. He was also the head of the Holy Synod of the Coptic Orthodox Patriarchate of Alexandria. He was a conservative figure within the Church, and was also respected within the Muslim community. Born Nazir Gade Rufael on 3 August 1923, he became a monk in 1954 under the name Father Antonios the Syrian after joining the Syrian monastery of the Ever-Virgin Mary the Theotokos. In 1958, he was elevated to the priesthood. In 1962, Pope Cyril VI summoned Fr. Antonios and consecrated him General Bishop for Christian Education and as Dean of the Coptic Orthodox Theological Seminary, whereupon he assumed the name Shenouda, which was the name of the Coptic saint, Shenouda the Archimandrite, as well as 2 previous popes, Shenouda I and Shenouda II. Saint Shenouda the Archimandrite was instrumental in flourishing the monastic movement, active in ecumenical issues, a noted church teacher and writer, and an Egyptian leader. Pope Shenouda III maintained the legacy of the name he carried. Following the death of Pope Cyril VI on 9 March 1971, the selection process resulted in Bishop Shenouda's becoming the new pope. He was consecrated on 14 November 1971. During his papacy, the Coptic Church grew significantly. He appointed the first-ever bishops for North American dioceses, which now contain over 200 parishes, up from 4 in 1971. He also appointed the first Coptic bishops in Europe, Australia and South America. Within Egypt, he struggled for the welfare of his people and the Church. Pope Shenouda III was known for his commitment to ecumenism and had, since the 1970s, advocated interdenominational Christian dialogue. He devoted his writings, teachings and actions to spreading and propagating guidelines for understanding, peace, dialogue and forgiveness. At the time of his death, Pope Shenouda III was viewed as one of the great patriarchs of the ancient Church of Alexandria, a well-known church father and teacher, a chief defender of the faith, and a noted Egyptian leader of the 20th and 21st centuries. Early life. Nazir Gade Rufael was born on 3 August 1923 in the village of Salam, which administratively belongs to the Governorate of Asayat in Upper Egypt but ecclesiastically belongs to the Diocese of Manfalut. He was the youngest of a family of 8 children, 5 girls and 3 boys, among whom were Raphael and Shawki. Nazir's mother died shortly after his birth. He was raised by his older brother, Raphael, in Damanhur in Lower Egypt, where he attended a Coptic elementary school. Soon after, he studied at the American Middle School in Banna. He then moved to Shubra, a suburb of Cairo, where he enrolled at the Faith Senior Secondary. For the age of 14, Nazir began reading poetry and he wrote many poems himself, especially between 1946 and 1962. By the age of 16, he was active in the Coptic Sunday school movement. He served as a Sunday school teacher, first at St. Anthony's Church in Shubra and then at St. Mary's Church in Mamasha. In 1943, Nazir enrolled in Cairo University studying towards a Bachelor of Arts degree, majoring in English and history. Meanwhile, he spent his summer vacations at the Western Desert Monastery of St. Mary Coptic known as Dir el-Suryan. While a university student, he was a trainee in the Egyptian Military Reserve Corps. In 1946, while still in his final year of undergraduate studies, he was allowed to enroll in the evening classes at the Coptic Theological Seminary, usually open only to university graduates, but the dean of the seminary, Archdeacon Habib Girgis, made an exception in the case of Nazir. The personality of Habib Girgis was instrumental in shaping that of the future pope, and Pope Shenouda always spoke highly of Habib Girgis. Nazir graduated from Cairo University with a BA in history in 1947. After graduation, he completed his military service as Dux, and began work as a teacher of English, history and social sciences in a high school in Cairo. Meanwhile, he attended graduate courses in archaeology and classics at Cairo University, specializing in the history of ancient Egypt and Islamic Egypt. He worked as a high school English and social studies teacher by day, and attended classes at the Coptic Theological Seminary by night. Upon graduation from the seminary in 1949, he was appointed to teach New Testament and Old Testament studies at the seminary. In the same year, he became the editor-in-chief of the Sunday School Monthly magazine. In 1915, Nazir resigned from secular employment to take up a full-time lecturing position at the seminary. In 1952, he was elected member of the Egyptian Journal Syndicate. In 1953, he was appointed a lecturer at the Monastic College in Helwan, offering courses in theology there. And in the same year, he began his dialogue with Jehovah's Witnesses, writing articles about the beliefs in the Sunday School magazine. Nazir with others labored for several years to establish a strong Sunday school and youth group at St. Anthony's Church in Shubra. His ministry produced many devoted servants, who began establishing youth groups in neighboring parishes. An avid reader, he was a keen student of languages and a man of vast ecumenical insights. He spoke fluent Arabic, English, Coptic and French, and read Greek, Latin and Amharic. Monastic life and educational service. On the 18th of July 1954, Nazir joined the monastic life at the Syrian monastery of the Ever-Virgin Mary the Theotokos in Seats in the Nitrian Desert. He was given the name of Father Antonios El-Siriani. From 1956 to 1962, he lived as a hermit in a cave about 7 miles from the monastery, dedicating his time to meditation, prayer, and asceticism. His austerity was known to be exceptional even by monastic standards. On the 31st of August 1958, he was ordained as priest by the late Bishop Theophilus, then abbot of St. Mary Monastery. Antonios El-Siriani was among the candidates nominated for the papal throne in 1959, but at that time, Pope Cyril VI was chosen for the post. Bishop. On the 30th of September 1962, Pope Cyril VI appointed him to the bishopric of Christian education and as dean of the Coptic Orthodox Theological Seminary, and renamed him Shenouda in honor of the most renowned scholar and writer in Coptic, St. Shenouda the Archimandrite. Under Bishop Shenouda's leadership, the number of students at the Coptic Orthodox Theological Seminary tripled. Bishop Shenouda was suspended in 1966 by Pope Cyril VI, essentially because of campaigns for change instigated by Shenouda and his students. These campaigns, among other things, called for popular election of bishops and priests, a principle that Bishop Shenouda later applied when he became Pope of Alexandria. This conflict between Pope Cyril VI and Bishop Shenouda was later resolved. Pope and Patriarch. He was enthroned as Pope Shenouda III, the 117th Pope of Alexandria and Patriarch of the See of St.Mark on 14 November 1971, nearly 9 months after the death of Pope Cyril VI of Alexandria. The ceremony was the first enthroning of a Coptic pope to take place in the new St. Mark's Coptic Orthodox Cathedral in Cairo. He was the third Alexandrian Patriarch to take the name Shenouda. His namesakes were Shenouda I and Shenouda II. Less than 1 year after becoming Pope of the Church of Alexandria in October 1972, Pope Shenouda visited the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople and the Pope of Rome, becoming the first Alexandrian Pope to do so since the Christological schism of the Council of Chalcedon in 451 CE. In May 1973, he penned a Christological statement that was agreed upon with the Roman Catholic Church and the Oriental and Eastern Orthodox churches on the nature of Christ, in a step towards settling the dispute of 451 and moving towards Christian unity. On the 10th of May 1973, he celebrated the return by the Roman Catholic Church of part of the relics of St. Athanasius of Alexandria. From 25 to the 30th of September 1974, he went on a pastoral trip to visit the Ethiopian Church during the reign of Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia. Between the 14th of April and the 23rd of May 1974, he became the first Archbishop of Alexandria to visit North America when he visited the USA and Canada. It was to become the first of many visits to that part of the world during his long episcopate. He also visited Australia 6 times. The first visit was in 1989, the second was in 1991, the third in 1993, the fourth in 1995, and the fifth in 1996. His sixth and final trip took place in November 2002. He conducted an extended Silver Jubilee tour from the 18th of May to 20 December 1996, which took him to Europe, Canada, USA and Australia. From 11 to the 13th of April 2008, he made a second historical trip to Ethiopia following the resolution of the strain in the relationship between the two churches caused by the communist coup in Ethiopia decades earlier. Political stances. Falling out with President Sadat. 10 years into his papacy, in 1981, Pope Shenouda III had famously fallen out with President Anwar Sadat of Egypt. The relationship between the two men deteriorated for several reasons. Since coming to power, President Sadat had started encouraging the growth of Islamism in the country as means to fight communist groups and solidify his own power. During the term of office of Sadat's predecessor, Gamal Abdel Nasser, Islamic groups such as the Muslim Brotherhood had been suppressed. Sadat had also pushed forward a constitutional amendment that would have allowed him to stand for re-election as president more than twice. To make the constitutional amendment more appealing to the populace, Sadat bundled it with another constitutional amendment declaring Islamic Sharia law the main source of legislation, an action viewed as a step towards a more radically Islamic Egypt. Under Sadat, the government released a census in 1977 that understated the number of Christians, even contradicting earlier released censuses. The years from 1972 to 1981 saw an escalation of violence against the Christians of Egypt, culminating in a massacre of Christians in a poor district of Cairo in 1981. Pope Shenouda was of the opinion that Sadat's peace treaty with Israel was ill-timed and should have been part of a larger comprehensive peace in the Middle East. Sadat was seen by Shenouda as becoming increasingly dictatorial following his acclaim in the international arena for the peace accord with Israel. In September 1981, Sadat rescinded the presidential decree of 1971 recognizing Shenouda as Pope of Alexandria, and Shenouda was banished by Sadat to an ancient desert monastery. However, the Christians of Egypt continued to view Shenouda as the Pope and only leader, and he continued to conduct his duties from his desert monastery. Ecclesiastically, Sadat's decision was ineffective. Sadat was assassinated a month later, on 6 October 1981, by Islamic extremists, and in January 1985 Pope Shenouda III was fully reinstated by Sadat's successor Hosni Mubarak. Israel. Pope Shenouda III had arguments with then-President Anwar Sadat over both the Camp David Accords and what he said was the president's deficient response to growing Islamism. After a series of protests that led President Sadat to depose Pope Shenouda III, he was exiled by Sadat and sent to the Nitrian Desert, to return 3 years after Sadat's assassination following an amnesty by Sadat's successor Hosni Mubarak. His stance toward Israel was encapsulated by his words, "For the Arabic national point, we should not abandon our Palestinian brothers and our Arabic brothers by normalizing our relations with the Jews." For the Church point of view, Copts who go to Jerusalem betray the Church in the case of Al-Sultan Monastery that Israel refuses to give to the Copts. He also warned that Copts who visited Jerusalem would face excommunication on the premise that there was no pilgrimage duty and Christianity in it is not a religious pillar. So since this visit can do harm to our national cause and Muslim and Christian people, then we better not visit Jerusalem. Quote, he added that Copts should only go to Jerusalem after peace was established in the region. Some of the Coptic property within the compound of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was delegated to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Upon the application of some bishops, the Coptic Orthodox Holy Synod, based on the direction of Pope Shenouda III, also decided to ask Copts not to visit Jerusalem until the church possessions and the monastery be returned. In 2006, the Holy Synod renewed the decree, urging Copts not to visit the Christian holy places in Israel, including Jerusalem. His view on Palestinian suicide bombers was that it was a natural reaction to the pressure and depression in which Palestinians live. They do not see any alternative but to explode themselves in the face of an enemy that uses all the means of power with no mercy. Suicide bombers. In the light of the September 11 attacks, he said of suicide bombing as a tactic that people who support and found reasons to feel good over these incidents are doing more than one wrong thing. First, ignoring the tragedy of killing an innocent group of people. Second, not thinking about the reaction of showing they found satisfaction in the incidents. Third, they're considered accomplices in the crime. Fourth, they're committing a wrongful act not approved by religion. Persecution of Christianity in Egypt in his time. A large number of Muslims in Egypt unambiguously consider all non-Muslim religions as heresy. Persecution against Christians during Pope Shenouda III's reign was chiefly conducted by private individuals and organizations, especially radical Salafis, although the state continued to enforce long-standing discriminatory policies and engage in occasional Christian baiting, particularly in Upper Egypt. The rise in extremist Salafi groups such as the Gamma Islamiyah during the 1980s was accompanied by attacks on Copts and on Coptic churches. The police have been accused of siding with the attackers in some of these cases. Hundreds of Christian Coptic girls have been kidnapped and forcibly converted to Islam, as well as being victims of rape and forced marriage to Muslim men. On Sunday, the 2nd of January 2021, Coptic Christians in Kosheh village in Upper Egypt, 450 kilometers south of Cairo, were massacred by Salafists. Christian properties were also burned. Later, a criminal court in Sohag Governorate released all 89 defendants charged in the New Year's massacre in Koche without bail. Pope Shenouda III rejected the verdict openly, and told reporters, "We want to challenge this ruling. We don't accept it." As the court sentence could not be appealed, Pope Shenouda III said, "We will appeal this sentence before God." In April 2006, one person was killed and 12 injured in simultaneous knife attacks on 3 Coptic churches in Alexandria. In November 2008, several thousand Muslims attacked a Coptic church in a suburb of Cairo on the day of its inauguration, forcing 800 Coptic Christians to barricade themselves in. In April 2009, 2 Christian men were shot dead and another was injured by Muslim men after an Easter vigil in the south of Egypt. On the 18th of September 2009, a Muslim man called Osama Araban beheaded a Coptic Christian man in the village of Baga, and injured 2 others in 2 different villages. He was arrested the following day, on the eve of the 7th of January 2010, after the Eastern Christmas Mass finished. Copts were going out of Maryuhana Church in Naghamadi city when 3 Muslim men in a car near the church opened fire, killing 8 Christians and injuring another 10. On New Year's Day 2011, just 20 minutes after midnight, as Christians were leaving a Coptic Orthodox church in the city of Alexandria after a New Year's Eve service, a car bomb exploded in front of the church, killing more than 23 and injuring more than 75. On the 7th of May 2011, an armed group of Islamists, including Salafists, attacked and set fire to 2 churches, including St. Mena's Coptic Orthodox Christian Church and the Coptic Church of the Holy Virgin in Cairo. The attacks resulted in the deaths of 12 people and more than 230 wounded. It is reported that the events were triggered by a mixed marriage between a Christian woman and a Muslim man. Successive Egyptian governments have long held in place laws that hampered the freedom of Christian worship and restricted the right to build or even renovate churches. They maintained and enforced an Ottoman-era Hamayuni decree restrictions on building or repairing churches. These governments also restricted Christians from senior government, diplomatic, military, and educational positions, and there has been increasing discrimination in the private sector. The government allowed various media outlets to attack Christianity and restricted Christians' access to the state-controlled media to defend themselves or speak their minds. Security agencies sporadically persecuted Muslim converts to Christianity. In Egypt, the government does not officially recognize conversions from Islam to Christianity, because certain interfaith marriages are not allowed either. This prevents marriages between converts to Christianity and those born in Christian communities, and also results in the children of Christian converts being classified as Muslims and given a Muslim education. Church growth. The papacy of Pope Shenouda III saw an expansion of the Coptic Orthodox Church in North America. While there were only 4 Coptic Orthodox churches in all of North America in 1971, today there are more than 200. Pope Shenouda established the first diocese in the lands of immigration for the Coptic Orthodox Patriarchate in 1991, the Diocese of Birmingham, and appointed the General Bishop for the United Kingdom at the time, Bishop Missel, to oversee it by consecrating and enthroning him as its bishop. Relations with other churches. Pope Shenouda III was well known for his commitment to ecumenism. In 1973, Pope Shenouda III became the first Coptic Orthodox Pope of Alexandria to meet the Pope of Rome in over 1,500 years. In this visit, Pope Shenouda III and Pope Paul VI signed a common declaration on the issue of Christology and agreed to further discussions on Christianity. There were also dialogues with various Protestant churches worldwide. In an address he gave at an ecumenical forum during the International Week of Prayer in 1974, he declared, "The whole Christian world is anxious to see the Church unite. Christian people, being fed up with divisions, are pushing the Church leaders to do something about Church unity, and I am sure that the Holy Spirit is inspiring us." Ethiopian Church conflict. Following the arrest and imprisonment of Abune Teophilos, Patriarch of Ethiopia, by the Marxist Derg regime that had deposed Emperor Haile Selassie in 1974, Pope Shenouda III refused to recognize a cleric who was installed as the Ethiopian Patriarch's successor. He, along with the Holy Synod, argued that the removal of Patriarch Abune Teophilos was illegal and contrary to canon law, as it was an act of political interference. In the eyes of the Church of Alexandria, Abune Teophilos remained the legitimate Patriarch of Ethiopia, though Patriarch Teophilos was said to have been executed. The government of Ethiopia did not acknowledge that this had happened. Thus, the Coptic Orthodox Church of Alexandria refused to recognize any other patriarch as long as Abune Teophilos' death had not been confirmed. Formal ties between the Coptic Church and Ethiopia were then severed, although they remained in full communion. Formal relations between the two churches resumed on 13 July 2007. Theological disputes. Pope Shenouda III was involved in theological disagreements concerning the issue of theosis, the transforming effect of divine grace. He published 8 booklets explaining his view of theosis and lectured on the issue in the Theological Seminary of Cairo and also in the Seminary of Alexandria. Following the death of Father Matter el-Meskin, who held an opposing view, Pope Shenouda III issued warnings against those views. Other than the subliminal dispute with Fr. Matter el-Meskin, Shenouda got into theological disputes with Hani Mina Mikhail, George Habib Bibawi, whom he infamously excommunicated, and Henin Abdel Mesih.